You're on, it's on.
We're just going to let it warm up for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Okay, Puppy, they can't see me.
They can.
A bit closer. Yeah, okay, can they see me now?
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Well, yeah.
Go back a little bit. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of another lecture based on the Scientology Handbook, Tools for Life. Today, as promised, I have another special guest speaker, and we'll be covering a topic which is super, super relevant today because it's about the subject of study and education. There's obviously a lot of children all over the country and all over the world who are self-isolating and on lockdown, and a lot of parents that are having to homeschool them. So here is some practical advice from a professional tutor and a graduate of what we call in Scientology Study Technology. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our top educator, Miss Stephanie Jones.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, well, I'm not going to give myself any better introduction than that. Okay, guys, thank you to everyone who's joined us so far. We are, just as a forewarning, I live in a house with a few people, two of which are children, and may come in at any moment, so be ready. But we're going to do this, I'm going to keep it really short. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of something which you may already know a lot about, which is the technology of study. Now, we have tons of these online courses on Scientologycourses.org, but the one on study technology, for me anyway, as a tutor, is arguably one of the most important because it enables you to be able to study all of our courses, and it gives you one of the most valuable tools we have, which is the technology of study. So we're going to jump right in. Now, one of the first things you need to look at before you start studying any topic or any subject is what could get in your way from the get-go. Because if you can remove the obstacles and the barriers that you know you're going to run into or that you could potentially run into with that subject, you're going to make your runway a lot smoother into getting into the application of what you're studying. So one of the first things, we're just going to go onto the Scientology online courses page where it has the entire book on here along with the course. You study, you watch the video, and you can go through the course itself and test your knowledge on it and really pick up on any areas where you're not getting it or where you want to reapply. One of the first things it says is the first block, something that prevents progress, that can prevent you from becoming a successful student in any subject, is the willingness to know. Now, willingness, the word itself is the quality or state of being willing, which is eager and happy to do something. So your willingness to know is obviously to do with how much you'd like to get that knowledge from that subject which you're going to be studying and be able to use and apply it. But one of the first things you should really look at before starting any of your studies is this specific point here, which is the biggest single block to learning is your decision that you already know all about it. And that's something that I really encounter a lot with people, and even with myself. Is sometimes you'll have a look at something, or sometimes you'll go to, I don't know, Google something, and you think you've already got a certain amount of data about it. So maybe you skim through it, maybe you don't study it thoroughly, maybe you miss certain points that you could pick up on. But I feel like this is, and it obviously says it's the biggest single block to your learning, is that idea that you already understand it, or you already know the topic, you already have the knowledge that you're going to study or look for. And if you talk to anyone who's really successful, they'll tell you that constantly learning, continuing to study, continuing to build up your knowledge, all of these things, it's the key to success, because no one stops learning. Everyone's heard that line that no one actually stops learning, but it is the key to your ability to study that and to learn that, is to be willing to constantly learn new things. And it's, before you start any subject, if you can handle yourself in that way and get that viewpoint, you'll pick up so much more, even things that you thought you already knew. Now, what the technology of study actually goes into are the certain blocks and barriers that you can run into as a student and how to pick up on these. Everyone who's watching right now, hello to everyone new here, is, we've all studied something. We've all had something, some knowledge given to us. We've all either been to school or picked up a book to read, even if it's just for leisure. And the thing about it is you will have run into certain problems. And whether or not you had this technology already to improve them and to overcome those barriers, this is what the technology of study offers you. It's the ability to understand what it is that you're running into and why, and how to actually overcome it. So, barriers to study. Let's have a look. So, the first barrier is too steep a gradient. A gradient is a level or a position you can be at. So it's like an echelon or a plateau. So literally a level, a step up. So you start at the basics and you build your way up to whatever the levels are. But if you go from, basic 1 all the way up to here, I did that with my language studies quite a bit actually, with French specifically, where I, got bored of learning all the basics, like the cat sat on the mat and all of that stuff, and tried to go way up here and have some random knowledge from up here and very little from down here and nothing in between. And basically I can't speak French. But that is the thing, is when you jump yourself too high, what you end up doing is you can't really assimilate the data, you can't take it in, you can't apply that, you can't really use it because you're missing everything in between. And there's a reason why you would want to graduate that. The thing is, what I run into with a lot of my students is they don't have their subject laid out like that for them. And it's probably something that you guys will run into too. So one thing that you can do is you can just take that element of it, of being able to know what your gradients are, when you're going too far up the gradients, when something's feeling too difficult or too much, or like you're missing data from before. And the beauty of modern internet and everything else is you can go and look these things up and you can find what could be in between. Or it's how I taught myself guitar actually, is you study through one program, you find that something else doesn't quite bridge the gap between what you knew then and what you're learning now, and you can find out what's missing, what's that missing link. And it sounds like common sense, but the thing about this technology is it is common sense. It's very, very applicable. And talking about application, the whole purpose of knowing this technology and being able to study and being a good student is that you do learn how to apply it. That's the end goal of your studies, is being able to apply the information to your life or to your subject or your work, whatever you're doing. Now, if I can find this, let me just take you through this one. So we're going to take up the first barrier to study. Actually, you know what? I've jumped straight into the second barrier to study, which was my bad. Because it's one that I feel like it is key. It's that steeper gradient. Obviously, there's lots of different elements to this, but that when you're too steep a gradient on something, which is what I find so frequently with my students, whether it's in their school, whether you're in university or primary school or whatever you're doing, that is something that unless you have it laid out well, you will run into this problem. And I guarantee we will run into this. So what we're going to look at is right here. So there are certain manifestations, which means something physical that will come out, something physical or to do with you mentally that will happen, which is an indicator of what you're running into. So when you run into too steep a gradient in something, it produces a sort of confusion or reelingness. Reelingness being a dizzy feeling or unsteadiness. So have you ever been trying to study, trying to understand, and maybe you literally feel the reelingness, or maybe you feel like you don't know where to look, you don't know what you're doing, and you've sort of lost yourself somehow in it, and there is a sort of dizziness about it. That is too steep a gradient. So when you come across that, that's what you're running into. Now, it's very easily recognized, but when you're doing that and when you're going through the motions of something that's new to you, you want to just make sure that you are picking up on any of the parts in between, and basically being able to find that knowledge that was missing, or that missing link is the solution to that. And you will feel that manifestation of dizziness or reelingness actually lift off when you find the right reason behind it and you can actually put the knowledge that was missing into it. Okay, now I'm going to take you guys back to what should have been the first barrier to study, which is absence of mass. Now, there's a couple words in there, so let's look at that. So, what it says here in the book is, in the study of any subject, you have both mass and significance. Mass means the actual physical objects that you are learning about, rather than their meanings or ideas about them. These include things such as computers, a car, a rock, the wind, light, heat, birds, trees, animals, etc. Significance of a subject refers to the meaning or ideas or rules about something rather than its existence as an actual physical object. So when you're learning about something, you've obviously got, let's break it down as, you've got theory, you've got that knowledge you can pick up on it, and you've got the mass, the actual physical items or the things. If you're studying about a car and you sit there reading a book all day long about the engine parts, the wheels, the tires, etc., there's only so much you can get from that. Whereas if you were to go downstairs, find your car and have a look at this thing and actually be able to make contact with it, this is mass. It's the actual physical side of things. Let's look at that again. So mass means the actual physical objects that you are learning about. That's what's key. That's the thing. You have to have some mass. Now, obviously, you're not always going to be able to go down and see the actual item or see the object, but this is the thing, is when you actually know how to use study technology, there's a method that we can apply to give you mass on a subject without having to go and actually see the subject itself. So, first of all, let's have a look at how you notice it. How do you see when you're getting that point of lack of mass? So, the first barrier to study is this: education in the absence of mass in which the technology will be involved is very hard on a student. Education in the absence of mass makes you feel squashed, which is, squashed in that sense is feeling that you can't achieve something and you've given up even trying, as if you've been pressed or flattened with force, you know. Bent, feeling as if you were not standing up straight, but with the top part of your body leaning down. Sort of spinny, circling. Sort of dead, like, you know, a feeling of lacking livingness or enthusiasm, or even just lacking interest in what you're studying as you start to lose that interest in it, you know. Bored, exasperated, which is feeling very irritated or upset because things aren't the way you want them. I think every student I've ever taught has gone through a period of at least a lot of exasperation where they can get angry at their subject, they get upset with their subject, and the upset is because they don't understand it. And that's why, and I know everyone has had this, and it includes everything from, you'd be shocked what kind of manifestations come out of an absence of mass. So you have a face that feels squashed, headaches, a dizzy feeling from time to time, your stomach feeling funny, and very often your eyes are going to hurt. This is all in there, you guys. This is everything that it will produce in a person. And this is why, and I really, really recommend, if you go onto Scientologycourses.org, we have all of this on there. You get the whole book online along with your course, videos, everything. This is a really brief overview that I'm doing of it. But you'll get so much from this if you just read through it yourself. And even if you're someone just in the spirit of applying this, even if you're someone who has studied this from beginning to end over and over again, if you go back through it, you'll pick up on some little things, on something new, and you can always learn more from it. And it's such a great course to do because it's quick, it's simple, and it will really give you this technology of study in the best way possible from your own home as well. Now, if we look at how you're going to overcome this barrier, so we're looking at remedying these barriers, right? In Scientology, we do something which is, we have a demonstration kit, or a demo kit, we call it. And that's just bits and pieces, odds and ends, paperclip, pen lids, corks, bottle tops, things like that, which you put together and you have with you every time you study. So when you're studying any subject, if you're looking at how to apply something or how something fits into something else, and you're reading it in a book, but you're not seeing it in real life, you're not, you know, I know we have YouTube and Google and all things like this, and great, you can totally get pictures and use it, but something which can make it very real for you is putting it there yourself. So you use your demo kit to represent parts of what you're studying and how they work together, or how they connect and how they would apply to that specific study that you're doing. And it helps to give you the understanding and remedy that absence of mass for yourself. The other thing you can do is use clay, which is, plasticine, Play-Doh, that sort of thing. It's the thing that kids normally have, but you use that and you can create people, you can create situations, you can build the entire object for yourself, and it will, if you're not finding the demo kit resolving this, if you have access to it, I mean, you can buy it anywhere, but have it for yourself. If you do that, I guarantee it will remedy that problem for you, because it's such a frequent issue for people. And it's really key to have that, because you have to have a proper balance of mass and significance. And actually that's what he talks about here, because the purpose of clay demonstrations are, 1, to make the materials being studied real to you and by demonstrating them in clay, 2, to give you a proper balance of mass and significance, and 3, to teach you to apply. And again, we go back to that point of application, which is the whole point of whatever you're studying and the key to doing so. Now, the other point, this does go into a whole technique behind clay demonstrations themselves. So it's very, very much worth going and finding that and reading up on it properly, if nothing else. But if you have any specific questions, let me know and I can get it sent to you as well. And then the third point is sketching. So if you want to make a sketch, if you want to the situation, and if you want to just demonstrate how it all connects, you can do that with a simple sketch. I use sketches quite frequently, demo kit probably the most, and then clay whenever I can, and it's well worth doing. With my students, I tend to use sketches because we'll be sat together, we'll be working on some topic, and it helps them to sketch it out for themselves and see myself demonstrating it to them as well. My students are quite young, so you can do that for yourself. Now, the third, let me take you to here. Okay, third barrier to study. I'm going to read this top part of it to you because I don't want to get this one wrong. So, the third and most important barrier to study is the misunderstood word. A misunderstood word is a word which is not understood or is wrongly understood. And that's a key point there, because you can think you have a definition, you can think you can understand it, but if you don't, it's not going to fit in with what you're studying. An entirely different set of reactions result from a misunderstood word. When you go past a word that you do not understand the meaning of, you can get a blank feeling. Now, I think everyone has had that. Have you ever read to the bottom of a page and then completely forgotten what you've just read? And you reread it and maybe you start daydreaming and you have all sorts of things, but that blank feeling, that is completely to do with the misunderstood word. That's all that it stems from. So if you can find that word, you resolve the blank feeling and you speed up your studies a lot more rather than reading the page. I have some students who tell me they read the page 3 or 4 times over, and that's for university studies. So that's something which, it's such a common problem for people, and that's why this is the most important barrier to study. It's the most important thing, and it's probably one of the biggest breakthroughs in terms of what study technology gives you and what Scientology has discovered. And that's something that when LRH was studying this and researching this and putting this together, there's a reason why he says this is the most important part. Now, there are a few other points of what a misunderstood will give you. I won't go through absolutely everything, but the not there feeling, a washed out feeling, and going blank, these are things that we've all had, and that is all that this stems from. And this is something that it's the most important of the 3 barriers because it influences your ability to do. And again, application, because a lot of the studies that we have, not just in the UK, but I think everyone and everywhere, it's all geared towards what knowledge you can retain, what can you regurgitate in your exams, what do you remember from your class, from your studies, and it's something that it doesn't focus on application. So when it comes to study technology, we're focusing on the application of the technology itself, how you use it, how you apply it to your studies, to your life. And it's not just when you're reading a book or when you're studying for work or a new subject, it's everything. And if you can actually take in knowledge properly and understand it thoroughly, you build up your abilities in life and your ability to handle life so much more. Now, I just want to take you through this. So let me show you. There are just a couple of points to explain what you should be looking for, because obviously there's the different manifestations. But when you misunderstand a word, it will be the section right afterwards which goes blank in your memory. So a lot of people will, if you know that page that you go blank on, you can go looking through that for a word. Maybe you find it, maybe you don't. But what you'll actually find is the real word, the thing you should be looking for, is just before that point. So you could be reading something, feel totally fine, misunderstand one word, and then straight afterwards you're going to go blank. So you look for a little earlier. We're going to cover that in just a second. And what you're looking at is you don't have to type it, you don't have to, you don't want to, you can give me a wave or you can leave it. But who here has given up on a subject because of this feeling where you go blank, you lose interest, you get bored, you close a book, you never pick it back up again, whatever it is? I think everyone would have at least had one subject like that, or one thing, and you can justify it as many ways as you want, but the reason why you'll leave a subject, why you'll stop studying, stop learning about it, or lose interest, is going to be because of this problem, which is the misunderstood word. Now, let me have a look here. Good. So again, I really, really want to emphasize to people going on and doing this course. It's on Scientologycourses.org. It's really simple to find. It's all there. The course itself, you can take as long as you want on it, and it's very interactive. But this will give you the whole information on how to use this. I'm going to give you a very brief description of what you do to remedy the most important barrier, which is the misunderstood word. So, let me just give you the quote from it. A misunderstood will remain misunderstood until you clear the meaning of that word. You clear a word by looking up its meaning in a dictionary and getting a full understanding of that word. Once you have looked up all the definitions of a word and you fully understand the word and you know how to use it, that word can be called cleared. That's because its meaning and use are clear to you and there is nothing about the word that you do not understand. Now, there are some very exact steps on how to use that. You want to make sure you have a good dictionary. A lot of us these days will pick up our phones, Google the word. It's not really the best way to do it. If you can go online and you can find yourself a dictionary that you know works for you, or one that isn't going to have too many technical meanings, which you don't really want to associate with, or you don't want to associate with your studies and start learning those, that's a key thing. So just make sure you're using a dictionary that's good for you. And what you're going to do is, there's a whole way of how you actually clear a word. So you're going to take it and you're going to define this word by looking at which one makes sense with the one that you're using in your studies, understanding that, feeling like you understand it and you can use it and apply it. And then you're going to look up all the other words, all the other definitions for that word, and be able to use those. Now, a lot of people have been taught different ways to use a dictionary. A lot of my students these days are being taught to open the dictionary, look at the word, close it and leave it there, which is fine. It's just, it gives them more than they usually get. The problem is they never remember that word. And I run into this problem with them over and over and over and over again. And I've now finally gotten them, the ones that I'm working with, to apply this fully, which means that you get a thorough understanding of this word. You thoroughly clear this word. So once you've gone through and you've looked at all the other definitions and you can use those, next thing you do is to clear the derivation. Derivation means the origin of something, where it derives from, where it comes from. And the reason that we're going to do that is because knowing where the word came from, it helps you get a basic understanding of the word. Try it. Take any word you want. Take a really simple word or a really complex word, whatever you want to do, and go and look up the derivation of that word. Whether you know it or not, go and look up the derivation of that word, because it will give you an idea of why that word is structured that way, why it means that, why we use that word in this situation, lots of different things, but it gives you a better understanding. So there's a few other steps to this, things to do with the ways that the word could be used. Sometimes you have different phrases which give the word a different meaning, etc. I don't want to go into too much detail on exactly how to do this, because I'd really like you all to be able to go and take this course, or at least read through the book which you get on the website, because it's something that gives you so much more information, and you can use it in your own way. And when you're studying it for yourself like this, it becomes your own knowledge. Now, what I'm going to do is just leave it at that, actually, because I think everyone, I'm going to show you here. If you go onto Scientology online courses. It's right there. And what you'll find on there is everything. And it's not just this course. We have tons of different courses on lots of different areas of life. Study this one first if you haven't already, or at least read through the book, because it's going to give you the ability to study for yourself and educate yourself in anything you want to learn. And this is the perfect time to do that because everyone's studying from home right now. And you can pick up new skills, new techniques, or something you already know but don't feel confident enough on. And this will give you the confidence to understand it and apply it in any subject. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.